How would you like to be involved in property development and get someone else to do all the hard work for you? How cool would that be? My name's Ritchie Clapson and you're watching The Open Door Show. So as I say, get someone else to do all the hard work for you. So on today's show, I'm going to be talking to a project manager. Probably one of the best project managers out there in the industry, a good friend of mine. I'm going to be talking to Mr. Dan Stiles from Syndicate Project Management. Dan, how are you?
Hi there, Richie. How you doing?
Very, very good. Now, Dan's not been very well the last few days, but he's still agreed to come into the studios and record today's session. So hopefully we're going to push on through. Dan, pleased you're here. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
Now, tell me, first of all, tell me about Syndicate, tell me about your company, and a little bit about your background.
Okay, no problem at all. I own a company called Syndicate Property Development, and we are project managers and cost consultants primarily, working within the construction industry. And I've been running that business since 2015 in the UK. I've been working overseas for 10 years prior to that, in the Caribbean and also in the Middle East. So a good experience across international markets. And prior to that, I was working in the UK for 10, 15 years on all sorts of things of commercial, retail, leisure, aviation, hospital, schools, all sorts of things. So very diverse background of mine. And then using all of that experience, and I thought, well, in 2015, I'll come back and I'll start my company. And
what was wrong with the Caribbean? I mean, most people would be listeners thinking, well, why don't you stay in the Caribbean?
Well, that's a good question, isn't it? 10 years was enough. I thought it's time to have my family and start fresh, and it was a right time for me. I'd done it. I'd experienced what I wanted to experience, and I thought I want to take this chapter to a new place and have a go running my own business and doing development. So that's why I came back and started again.
Great stuff. So in terms of project management, there'd be a lot of people perhaps listening to this who really are completely new to property and don't really know what a project manager is. Could we perhaps just explain that for our audience? What is a project manager in property development?
So I like to think that the project manager, is there to help be your guide, your confidant in that sense, and they're there to make sure that things happen in a certain sequence in a certain way, and they're your eyes and ears. So when you go into do development or any kind of market, really, somebody is there to make sure it's done in the right sequence and it's coordinated, and that is their specialist field. So project management in construction is to make sure that the implementation of that project is done correctly. That's their primary role, really, and there's lots of other things that come with it, and health and safety and other bits and pieces as well, but that's your main point, to be there as a project manager. So it's not for you to make all those decisions. It's for them to use their experience.
So it's interesting you say you. I guess the point here is that a lot of people will be thinking about, maybe if they're in property, perhaps if you're out, you're a landlord, a buy-to-let landlord, HMO service departments. People are used to running their own developments, getting the trades in, getting plasterers, plumbers, electricians in. When we talk about property development, where we're talking about a step up, not just a flip, but we're talking about maybe development, converting a commercial building, for instance, into residential. Why is that so different? Why do we need this project manager?
In the field that you're talking about there, you are probably getting the trade ad hoc in as required. You might have a painter come in here and then, and you might need a plumber when you need it because you've got a dripping tap. When you're doing a proper development, you need to bring all these trades together and run so they're cohesive nature there. So they need to run a certain sequence. They're not just when you pick up the phone call, oh, can you pop in to do a job for me? So it's a very different environment for them to be in, because you're trying to work in a sequenced position. Certainly if you've got funding and you've got commercial funding, they will want to know that that project has been started from the beginning and get to the finish in a way that they understand and you understand the process involved. Your project manager is there to ensure that happens, because they will understand at what time the sequence is. And not just your trades, but also your professional team. They are as much as an important part of that, to ensure that design is in the right place and that the people are doing the jobs at the right time. So they will make sure that that sequence in the field and in the classroom, let's say, is running with harmony. You know, that's really important. It's not just a trade turning up when they want to.
I guess, yeah, I get your point here is that if we're just doing a buy-to-let, we get an odd trade in, another one, and it can almost be sequential. Doesn't really matter. We've got a fair bit of time. But when we're talking about development, time is money. And there is now a huge element of design. So you talk about the classroom, architects, structural engineers, mechanical and electrical consultants, perhaps a whole series of designers who have to be coordinated, run to a timescale, put information together. And now we're not just talking about odd trades, we're talking about a whole heap more contractors that's all got to be pulled together. That's the important thing, I guess.
Absolutely. It's making sure that the tradesman who turns up can do their job, because there's nothing worse than a tradesman turning up to install the electrics, but there's no walls for them to put it on because you thought they'd be in place.
Yeah.
These are the situations you tend to find a lot. Oh, I thought it was going to be that. I come to measure the kitchen, but we haven't got any walls to measure. These are the things that happen. And if
Has that happened with people that try and manage their own projects where they get someone to measure the kitchen and there's not even walls to build the kitchen?
Yes, they thought it would be there by that point.
Wow.
You may be ordering windows, and windows is a big one. You know, you use a long lead time on windows, especially if specialist windows, and you need to make an opening suitable for that. And you know, quite often a window turn up and you'll go, well, this doesn't fit because we thought it would be ready, or it thought it'd be this side. So that coordination is very complicated, and there's many steps in that. And if you are doing that as an unseasoned developer, you're not going to know what sequence that should happen in. You're not going to know what you're signing off on. So your project manager is vital, because they will make sure that your team is doing that. And so when those trades turn up, and that's what you're trying to do, is get those trades turning up at the right time, in the right sequence, and they're not tripping over each other. And often if you don't have the right project manager, and project managers come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah. You're quite tall. You're quite a tall project manager, so you're right. All shapes and sizes.
So if they don't have experience in that industry, they may be a really good project manager in a different sector, but they don't know construction. So you know, even that can trip you up, because you know, you should make sure that the project manager has the right experience, will know how to conduct that team.
I like what you said there, and certainly you may be listening to this, or maybe you are a project manager, and certainly we've had quite a few students come to us over the years that they say, oh no, I'm actually a project manager in a completely different sector, and they have this appetite to project manage, but you're a project manager, but the experience you need is so diverse, it's so far away from what you need for construction, is it? It's just not possible to go and manage that, or is it?
I think, in my experience of speaking with other project managers from other industries, what they find is frustrating is the time. And often, you know, in different industries, the time is very time critical, in the sense that we want it now and everybody knows what they're doing. But in construction, it's very much bespoke, and that now is much harder to achieve. So sometimes decisions take longer to get there because other parties need to be involved. And it's not just a case of a tick box exercise where a project manager is just, you know, knows their field of expertise. And I'm speaking to people in IT and petrochemical. You know, all different project managers have specialisms, and could we transfer that? Could I walk into their industry and apply the same thing? Probably not.
You couldn't, no. You'd give it a go, but probably badly.
Because I wouldn't know the field of that they work in, and that comes with time and experience, and building that confidence with and relationships with the other professionals. That is really important. How that professional team sees you as the project manager and how they can relate to you, because it's very much a communication led.
So this project manager sits and sort of glues not only the professional team together, but all of the contractor and the subcontractors. You are in a project, the sort of linchpin, the bit that holds everything together, and people have to respect and know you can do this. So if you were giving it a go as a new project or as a new developer trying to project manage, how would the design team, the contractor and subcontractors view you?
They would probably be very sceptical that you know what you're doing.
Because you don't.
Because you don't. And they may take advantage. and you could be
Wow.
taken into a place where you're made to make decisions ill-informed, and if you've got nobody to guide you, because there's nobody behind you, you may be taking the wrong decision, and therefore that could impact, and that can impact in the way that your funder loses confidence in you because you're not making the right decisions at the right time. So that's, if you self-project manage without experience, you could really get yourself into a muddle.
I want to pick up on this point about you said they could take advantage of you, because I think it's probably fair to say, for anyone listening, there's a lot of money involved in property development. I mean, who wouldn't want to make 100, 200, 400, 500,000 pound profit? You would, wouldn't you? But when there's a lot of money at stake and people can see big money, there's people out there who perhaps don't have the same values, a little bit unscrupulous. And there are, sad to say, in our industry, contractors, industry people that will take advantage of you. And I guess this is a situation where they have that opportunity because you're not experienced, you don't know.
Yeah. So, sometimes it would be the have a go project manager as the unseasoned developer, and you can be manipulated into a position where you are paying out money for things that you think is the right decision or in the right way, but actually it's not going for the purposes, or they may be taking advantage of you because they may have shortcomings elsewhere, and you're the cash cow to go to, and they'll take advantage of you. And if you don't know that and you can't see that, then it's one of those, it's happened, and then it's like, oh, how do I make this better? How can I fix the situation? And if you've got nobody there to hold that fort for you, then you're just vulnerable. The thing is that contractor is probably experienced, or those individuals are probably experienced, they know what they're doing, and they can prey on you. And so, very important, you have your project manager with you, alongside you from the outset, because they can make sure, especially if they're seasoned and they're experienced in that field, they can make sure that doesn't happen for you.
I like the point there that you talked about, and probably people have watched these TV programs that have rogue contractors, and you're right. People often ask for money. These contractors ask for money, and they need that money because otherwise they can't carry on with the project. And you give them a 50,000 or 100,000, and it goes straight into their bank account, straight onto another project. And you need to know that money's being spent on your project, don't you? Let's just talk about money. Let's bring this back to funders as well, because a large amount of property development is funded by specialist commercial funders. Particularly if you're looking to get into property development, you might think, have I got enough money? I wouldn't overly think about that because there is huge amount of commercial funding available out there to support you. But of course, when we're talking about a commercial funder lending us up to 70% of the purchase and 100% all the build cost, they're pretty much going to insist that you as a developer have an industry experienced project manager. Would that be fair to say?
They'll want to know that you have a structure in place for sure, and they will want to know what your team is all about and where they've come from and how they've engaged with you. Many funders won't work on a package trade route because that's you becoming the project manager and you trying to control your individual trades, as we were talking about earlier with the HMO type scenario. So your project manager will be there to ensure that those trades, as I say earlier, will work in the right process, and the funders will have confidence that when they're lending that money, that it's going where it should be going and coming down at the right times. Because often a funder will want to know how much month on month they're going to lend down, and they'll want to know that on program. So your project manager will be able to forecast that with the wider team and give them comfort that actually at these different stages, there's going to be this amount of work done and it's going to cost this amount of money. So they can then almost check along that route to make sure that it's happening in that sequence. If you haven't got somebody there, then you have no structure in place potentially. So then the funder becomes quite uneasy about where that money's going, how it's been spent, and what's going on that job. And when they have a monitoring surveyor, which often comes down as part of that process, they might start seeing the project slipping because the progress isn't going as the way they should, because that monitoring surveyor will be experienced, the funder's very experienced, and all of a sudden the inexperienced developer is starting to lose control and, a messy site and trades not being on site, that's when things start to unravel, and it's very difficult to pull that back online.
So a funder can spot this quite quickly. And I guess this point you talked about a monitoring surveyor. This is a surveyor that comes out from the funder to check the status and the progress of the works and award a drawdown appropriately. But of course, we talked about just now about money being taken and given to a contractor and the contractor puts it elsewhere. This is a game where you come in as a project manager, maybe with your cost consultant hat on as well. You bring a cost consultant in as a project manager. You actually value the works as well to make sure that that drawdown is the right amount to protect us as developers.
Absolutely, you're monitoring. So your contractor is there to provide a program of works as they projected it from the start, and you're there monitoring that progress. And you can monitor it in terms of visual progress, looking at things, well, what happened on site. But you can also look at it from a commercial perspective. And as you say, your cost manager can look at it on how much money's being spent, and they can look at that from cash flow, and they can almost track it without even seeing anything on site, but just how much money's being spent. So it's a sort of second tier check. So the monitoring surveyor will be there to make sure that the sequence is happening. And if not, they will alert you and possibly the funder that things aren't quite going as they should be. And they may start asking questions of what's happening, why isn't this on the program? And if you're self-project managing, you may not have those answers. Or if you've got a project manager on site, they can answer those questions, and therefore they can deal with those situations and also maybe stave off a situation that could be coming down the road because they're looking over the horizon.
To prevent a problem, rather than just deal with problems, head these problems off because you've got the experience to do that.
Because you can then see over the horizon, actually, there's something we need to deal with in the future coming fast at us, and we can put the right processes in place. And that's the importance of having a project manager.
And I guess the downside, if we try and manage it as an inexperienced developer, we just don't have that ability. We've got no experience, no knowledge to not only perhaps foresee problems, but if a problem comes, how to tackle a problem. What about health and safety? Because health and safety is really important, and rightly so. We have to make sure these projects are controlled from a health and safety point of view. How does a project manager help us as a new developer in that role?
Well, they will make sure that the process that our legal requirements are followed, and they should be there to ensure that you are, as the client, the employer under the contract, are fulfilling your obligations from a legal standpoint, and ensuring you've got the right people in the right place at the right time. So it's quite a complex world of putting all this together and putting a contract together. But similarly downstream, they also make sure that the contractor's following what they need to do. And if things are on site and they're seeing works that are unsafe, or the operatives are working unsafely, it's for them to bring that to the attention of the site manager or the project manager for the contractor, and deal with it on a site level. Because at the end of the day, the primary goal there is health and safety. Is to make sure people are working safely. They're not doing things that are going to put themselves at risk. And if that's not being implemented, then somebody could get hurt and seriously hurt and even killed if things aren't being done safely. So it's a very multifaceted world that a project manager deals with, but it's to ensure they can see what's going on and give that feedback to you, the client, to ensure that what you're doing, you're making the right decisions.
Because I guess if we don't have someone controlling this professionally, and maybe underneath you've got a health and safety consultant specialist, and something goes wrong, someone gets killed, we could go to prison.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you fancy prison? You don't, do you? No. So right, we've got to get this right. You talked about contracts, and that's another interesting one. I often here's an interesting scenario. I had a relatively new developer came to propertyCEO, wanted us to educate them because they were having trouble on one of their projects. We had a chat with them, and I said, so what do you got? They've got a development ongoing at the moment. It's their first ever development. Their background was in finance, but they gave it a go. And they said, we've decided now, it's like a bit like the horse and the door and something that bolted. Yeah. So they'd already got a problem. because they'd given development a go. And their contractor was constantly pursuing for extra money, claiming extra money. And I said, have you got a project manager? No. Okay. Then we asked another question. I said, what sort of contractual arrangements you've got? You almost certainly won't have a contract in place. And I talked about a JCT contract, a joint contracts tribunal contract. And he said, oh, no, I've got one of those. I said, but you haven't got a project manager. Who wrote the contract? He said, well, the contractor wrote the contract for me. It's like the contractor wrote his own contract and it was like, oh my word, no wonder you've got problems. Can you just explain perhaps what the importance of contracts are and how we get those in place with the assistance of our project manager?
So a lot of people will do building projects on a handshake, and homeowners will do that more than anybody. They will go out and they'll get a builder in and they will say, can I have some work done, and they'll give them a price and they'll have a handshake and they'll wait for them to turn up. It's not really thought about what safety measures are in place, that if things went wrong, what recourse have they got to deal with that. If you scale that up into a construction project and you are self-project managing it, your contractor will say, oh yeah, it's fine, we can do that, that's my lump sum price, we can get on, can we start on Monday, give me some money. And all the relationships are all very nice and it's all very friendly.
To start with.
It's all very friendly to start with, and you think, oh, this is wonderful. And then things start to change, because once money becomes involved and actually you start making decisions that perhaps makes change on a site, then things start to get stretched, and that relationship might start to get more fractured and a little bit more hostile. And then before you know it, you're at war with each other. And you're now fighting from somebody that you thought was your best friend to start with. And now, because there's money involved, the dynamic changes. And if you have no contract in place, where do you go with this? You end up in a real mess. So having the JCT, as we think, it is a suite of contracts that's been tried and tested, been through the courts. It's there to basically be a neutral place that puts safeguards in place for all parties and ensures that there's processes that's followed. And if something goes wrong, there's a mechanism how to correct it or deal with it. So if a contractor is unwilling to sign up to a contract, that contractor knows or is possibly displaying tendencies that they may be of that type that are going to be not so easy to deal with down the road. So having that contract put in place from the start is really, really important. If you're a developer, you may not know what contract, so therefore your cost manager or your project manager will guide you, even your architect can guide you on the best type of contract for that type of project. Having that set up and the contractor signing up to that means that you've now got that safety net, if you want to call it that, in place. So if it does go wrong, there's something to go back to. It's always good to resist the contractor's own forms of contracts, because often they're bespoke and you end up in court over it because the terms and conditions are so onerous on some, either you, the client, or it's much more favourable to them and you're signing up to something that is untested. So really important, work with your project manager, work with your professional team, get your contract set up with all the right documents attached to it. Then you really want to do is put it in a drawer. That's the ideal thing. Put it in the drawer, it's put away, focus on your project, knowing that's there if you need to work to it.
So all of these things where the project manager comes in, contracts to help us control the cost, control the timescale, project manager to foresee problems before they turn up, tackle problems when they do turn up, to keep us on track, control these drawdowns, control the health and safety, control the end product that we want. All seem sensible. Now, offset, Dan and I were just talking about that wonderful TV program, Grand Designs. Grand Designs, every time we see Grand Designs, and dear old Kevin MacLeod, if you listen to this, Kevin, I mean, it's great, it's a great show, but every single project goes over budget and over time. What are they doing wrong?
often they've ended up self-managing. They've taken on the responsibilities to be a project manager, or they're the procurement, or they're trying to site manage it, primarily because they haven't done it before. It is often there's an emotional attachment because it's their home they're creating, rather than a commercial project or something they're investing into. So when it becomes emotionally attached to you, you become very passionate about it. I mean, that's understandable. And what can often happen is you can see they set unrealistic timelines, they set unrealistic budgets. So when you get to the end of it and you start to look at it, and the home may be beautiful when you've created, but it could be 2 years later, 3 years later than what you think. And the stress levels are off the scale. And so, and often when you're interviewing that person, would you do it again? No.
Yeah.
Never again. Because they've gone through the sort of mill of emotions that go through it, and seen
They can't afford to do it again because they're mortgaged up to the hilt.
And you have weather,
parents' home, grandparents' home.
They've borrowed from everybody, and weather comes in, and it's raining constantly, and they're up to their ears in mud. And what it demonstrates is as a project manager watching that kind of environment and that situation, you're thinking, if only they had done certain things. But often the money's not there, or they don't have the experience, and they've been perhaps guided in the wrong way. And it's as important, if you're doing your own projects or if you're doing an investment project, to have your team in place and invest in those teams. Put the right people in and listen to them. Very important. Listen to what they're saying to you, because end of the day, they're just there to be safeguarding your investment, whether it's your personal money for your personal home or for your commercial projects.
I guess if I was cynical, I might say that Grand Design Show format is designed to be good TV viewing, because every single project goes wrong. If you want to go on Grand Designs and you're thinking about going on it, listen to this Open Door show and maybe decide to employ a project manager. You might be the first Grand Designs episode that delivers on time and on budget. Who knows? Now, one of the great advantages of being a developer and getting into more than just a quick buy-to-let or a quick flip, when we're looking at converting maybe a commercial building, for example, into residential, we're getting huge uplift in profits. That enables us to afford a project manager. It enables us to get your expertise on board and the rest of that design team, which takes us to another level. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, it gives us more time. And that way, if you're out there, if you're listening, it enables you, whatever your background or experience, or geographically, wherever you're based, to become a developer and bring our project manager on board. Just thinking about some of our students, to give our listeners today some examples and inspiration that they could do this. Think of a couple of maybe students that, because Dan very much works with us here at propertyCEO, some students that you've worked with. Maybe what's their background, and what sort of projects are they doing, and projecting what sort of profits, without clearly mentioning any names.
Okay, so we work with a very cross section of people, from accountancy to IT to petrochemical to buy-to-let portfolios, accountants, all sorts of fields, medical practitioners. The list is very diverse, and obviously
all with no previous property experience.
Not really. Necessarily. They may be a very accomplished buy-to-let landlord. They may have a portfolio of HMOs, and they may have done light refurbs, and they know the HMO market very well, but they've never done a sort of a ground-up construction project. So obviously they have their own specialisms. I wouldn't go to my dentist and tell them to, how to take teeth out. Wouldn't be something I would do. I would invest in their specialist field. So it's a funny thing, we wouldn't do a lot of stuff in other people's worlds, but people like to dabble in construction. So it looks easy, it's not. So the different people we work with from project management adds another complexity, because obviously we're dealing with their specialisms, and also where their background is in terms of, are they international, are they where have they grown up, and what's their sort of demographic from where they've come from, and what do they know about the UK industry. That is another part of that whole process that can be very complicated to get a handle on. So you have to understand, and one of the things I try and do personally is try to understand the individual, their background, their motivation, their pain points. What do they find very, very difficult, and how can we guide them? Because at the end of the day, you want to hold their hand, take them through the process, be their comfort blanket in many ways, but communicate it in a way that they understand. And that's quite challenging, because everybody's different. Some people listen, some people don't listen. But you have to be patient. I think that's often what we have to be. And maybe you have to present it in different ways at different times, but make sure they understand what it is you're asking of them. So all different backgrounds, and in terms of project values, we're involved with project values from sort of $250,000 to several million in terms of types of projects. So from light refurbs, small units, up to quite major schemes.
So on these bigger schemes, some of these students with these very non-property related backgrounds can be earning substantial six-figure profits.
Absolutely, yeah. The risks are increased with that, but what's often overlooked actually is there's a number of fundamentals that appear on every project, regardless of scale. And actually that is often overlooked. And so when that individual starts to get into that construction project, they're like, gosh, I didn't realise I need this amount of people. Really? Do I need all these people to do all these things?
Yeah.
I thought I only needed an architect. No, you don't. So, and as that project grows and grows and grows, more and more people start to become part of that, and the sequences become more and more complex. So when you start to factor that in, your project manager becomes the hub in that, and is feeding those all in. And outside of that is all these different types of surveys that you need to have done these days, and studies. All of that has to be sequenced at different times.
But these individuals, as you say, accountants, IT, we've got petrochemical students,
Awesome.
teachers, their role is to run the company. Your role is to run the project.
Yes.
So they can leverage their expertise. We always talk about management skills, decision making skills, organizational skills, and fundamentally people skills. If they have those skills, if you have those skills, you out there now can run your business and you run the project. So they can. It doesn't matter what your background is. You can do this.
Yeah, you be the CEO. That's the ethos of the training that property CEO provides. Is be the top of the tree, and then let the team do the work for you. Don't go to the builders merchants and pick up the kitchen. Don't go off trying to get some stud because you've run out on site. That's not your world to do. Your world is to make the decisions when you're asked to, and let your professional team do the heavy lifting really for you.
And this is not a full-time job. You're running a business. You're doing all the heavy lifting. I said at the beginning of the show that you got someone to do all the work for you. You're going to run the project, so you could earn several £100,000 on average by running the business a day a week, and even from overseas. Would that be fair?
Yep, you can do it from overseas. And again, it's just understanding that. So we're working with a number of international clients now. And from our experience of that relationship, and from my personal thing of having worked overseas and worked in different cultures, and the challenges that brings. So being an alien, as they call you, as you go to a different culture, and how you fit into their culture, you can use that in reverse and understand how that client is finding the challenges of working with the UK. And obviously there's language that comes into play, but there's also understanding, what processes are there, how we do stuff legally, because every country has different rules. So whilst international clients are becoming more and more apparent, and there's definitely a lot of interest in the UK market, there's another level of challenges that those individuals. Obviously, there's the money, the financing stuff that can be very complicated, but then it's just understanding that. What's really important is your construction team having confidence that they can rely on you as an overseas client, because that can be very unnerving for a number of. So you might find that different specialists will be standoffish because you're not based in the UK. So again, if you can get that confidence through your project manager or a key consultant, then they can start to see actually you've got confidence in them, they've got confidence in you, and you can build around that.
This project management role is so important to deliver the project, keep you out of prison, control the money, control the quality, give you free time, make sure the funders support you. It's absolutely fundamental, isn't it?
I think when you start to analyse it more and more, you tend to realise how complicated that role is and how many layers there are to it. It's not just a one type of operation you carry out. You're carrying out multiple things at multiple times, and it's very high pressure. And you know that you've got a project to deliver in a budget and a time cost quality, that the triangle that we often work to, and keeping those entities going in the right direction can be very difficult. And a project manager learns that in time. It is something. It's an experience led industry. So if you don't have that, then you can often go off on the wrong path.
Wow. If people want to get in touch with you, website best route. The website is what?
We are www.syndicatepropertydevelopment.com. Drop on there. We've got a contact us page. All our information is on there. There's case studies on there, and there's some interesting information about projects. So yeah, drop on there, drop us a line, get in touch, and more than happy to help.
Dan, thank you for coming in today. Much appreciate it.
Thank you.
How good was that? I mean, that's good, isn't it? You've got to drop onto his website, have a look, see what he's about. It's been absolutely wonderful talking through with Dan today, and hopefully you've got something out of that. You can understand this importance of a project management role. If you're thinking about doing it yourself, definitely do not. Otherwise, I'll be round, okay? I'll be round to sort you out, not having that. So don't do it yourself. You're going to make mistakes. And most importantly as well, what do you want? Time. This person is going to do all the heavy lifting for you. And in development, you can afford to do this. Hopefully you found that interesting. I'm sure you have. I hope you made a few notes out of that as well. Please like and subscribe as always, and we'll see you in the next show.